We are live. Woohoo! Okay. Glasses, old guy glasses off, right? Welcome everybody to Casual Chat Live. I'm Brian Germain, and our guest today, as you already know, I would imagine, is Dan BC. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, Brian. Great to see everybody.
Yeah, it is. It's great to see you. For those that aren't Californians or haven't been exposed to the big way crowd, or just for whatever reason haven't read your book, which is a signed reading for any skydiver. But Dan is a legend, and he's earned it. And he's extremely well loved, which is there's a lot of great skydivers over the years that are really, really talented, really, really knowledgeable, but not such nice people as Dan is. And so we're very, very pleased to have you here, Dan.
A legend in skydiving usually means that they caught you dancing on the bar with video.
Which I'm sure they have.
There's no video.
There's no video. It did not happen. You must be a Rodriguez brother, no? So Dan is the manager at Skydive Paris, which I was corrected is it's now Skydive Paris. It was Paris Valley Skydiving last time I was there, which dates me. And that is an amazing place you guys have built.
We love it, really. It's a big drop zone. It's a big operation, but it really feels like just a club, the nice, welcoming, loving, engaging atmosphere that we really try to have. So no matter how big it is, no matter what kind of great, fantastic skydiving we're doing, it always still has that same warm, loving family feeling about it.
Yeah, and that's not easy to do, because of course you get busy when you're running a big drop zone. There's all these things going on, from the student operations to the general skydiving, and trying to keep things safe. It's very easy to slip away from that warm, almost small drop zone feel. And I've always, my experience has always been that Paris has managed to keep that balance.
If you really are loving what you do, and you have a staff that loves being there, and jumpers that enjoy sharing the whole place together, then it kind of happens on its own. Really, yeah. It's not something you have to try to do all the time if you've got that kind of a vibe and that kind of a feeling on the drop zone.
Yeah, and I would say that it trickles down from the top. So
I hope so. Nobody has more fun than me. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't get how people manage to not have fun on the drop zone, but sometimes people do get serious and busy and whatever and get aggro, but it just doesn't work for me.
Even when I was serious and busy, it was still all about having fun. I mean, it's a pretty stupid thing to be doing if you're not having a great time.
Yeah. Well, and of course you've done a buttload of competition and training for competition, as much as anybody in the history of the sport. And so it's something that comes to my mind, because we've got a lot of listener questions that are coming in. But I just wanted to sort of start you off with that topic, is how in a competition and training sort of regimen where you go, how do you keep yourself in peak mental performance?
Well, it all comes in the training. It's all part of the training. The training is as much the mental preparation and putting yourself in your peak performance state as it is the actual activity itself. And it's something you have to learn to do right from the beginning, because being able to, it's one thing to have really good skills. It's another thing to be able to perform with those skills when it matters. If you look at many top athletes in any sport, the best people, the skills aren't that much different, really, except that the best ones that can do it are the ones who can do it that day that it counts, and they can keep their heads together. And you have to start practicing that skill before you become world class. You have to start practicing the skill of performing your best, even when your best isn't very good.
Yeah.
And you still want to learn how to do it then. And it's just keeping things in perspective, understanding exactly how good you're trying to do, and calming yourself, trusting your instincts. There's a lot to it, but it comes with practice.
Yeah, it does. I mean, as far as like, one of the things that comes to my mind is nutrition. So like, did you have, especially when you're going hard at it, things that you tend to eat, things that you tend to not eat?
You don't tend to eat much. uh, you know, for me, I never put as much attention into the nutrition as I should have. At the same time, I wasn't eating crap. I mean, I'd have fruit, vegetables, and a couple of PBJs going over the course of the day, all day, and you'd kind of constantly eat a little bit between loads because you never stopped in the middle of training for the day to have lunch. You didn't stop what you were doing, so you just keep picking at it throughout the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I always found if I ate too much, especially heavy proteins when I was training, it would just make me tired. I wouldn't take a hiatus. I would just nibble and bananas and water and
Yeah, yeah.
that kind of thing. And I remember you talking about how you survived on PB&Js for a long time.
You can get away with that before you're 30 or so.
Yeah, you can.
I try to avoid them now as much as I can, but I lived on them for years.
Well, you're probably sick of them.
No.
Really, you still love it. Well, maybe you go organic, and gluten-free bread or whatever, and go hit. Yeah. So now, other questions that I have relating to that is the interpersonal stuff, because whether it was back in the days of Air Moves, right, which was an amazing team, and with an amazing story, and then Airspeed after that, interpersonal relationships and being able to keep the flow of information going back and forth, and at the same time keeping it civil, keeping it loving.
And it's, you have to, people think I want to do a team with my friends. I just want to do a team, get my best friends and do a team. But they may not be your best friends after doing a team together. It's a team. It's important. I mean, and there's different, you get to define what you mean by team for yourself. If you're just a few guys on the drop zone who want to get together with their friends and once a month do a day of skydiving and see where it goes, you can call that's a team too. Your team is whatever you define it to be. If you want to get a group together to push yourselves as far as you can possibly go, or to try to win a particular competition, well, then you have to have people who share that goal and are willing to understand the commitment that that's going to take, and to get behind that commitment. I've had teams where we didn't start off as the best of friends, and Airspeed would be one of them. But we're very clear on the commitment, very clear on the goal. There was no question about the goal. There was no question on how committed everybody was, and we defined how we were going to communicate as a team and what our expectations were from each other on the team. And in the process of that, when you have people that you share a dream with like this, and you're counting on them, you're needing them, you can't accomplish the dream on your own. If you could, you wouldn't have a team. You have the team because you need them to accomplish this goal of yours, to accomplish this dream. And when you rely on each other like that, and you're counting on each other like that, and you really can communicate clearly, you'll build friendships and relationships that you couldn't build without having a shared goal like that.
Yeah.
But it's also be in the process and has to be laid out how you're going to make that happen right from the start.
Right. Yeah. I think the kind of people that choose a team event like this, that actually, because you're going to rely on other people, and if they don't do their job, you're not going to do so well as a team. Even if you're the best guy ever in the world, you need a team. And
you can't fly all the slots.
No, you can't. I mean, maybe not in the same jump anyway, right? And so automatically, one of the things that I find most skydivers sort of fall in this category is they're very lovable, because they're the kind of people that choose that sort of a sport. This isn't solo mountaineering or something. This is where that you're relying on these relationships. And they're, I mean, you talk about somebody like Kirk Werner, I mean, these are Sully Williams, right? Just amazing people to be around. And you're the same, just easy to talk to. And I think
if they're not particularly loving, then you give them enough hugs till they just break down and go with it at that point.
So. Never work with Tommy though.
If they come too hard and too resistant, you just love them a bunch.
Yeah, exactly. You love them till they melt. But yeah, most skydivers, right? Oh, like almost all of them. I'm just amazed what wonderful people they are. And maybe it's just the filtering process of, I call it moths to the flame of awesome. That the sport is just so damn cool that it draws cool people.
It really, that's what I think I love most about it. It just takes a really special person. It takes a special person to do one jump, to actually get themselves, so many people talk about it, so many people dream about it, but to actually get yourself out to the drop zone, to make that jump the first day, with all the reasons there are not to go, all of the excuses there are not to do it, just to get there the first day takes a special person that you immediately, all of us have a bond with, but then to actually continue and to get involved with the sport and to get through AFF and to get all the way to your A license and to continue on from there, just takes a certain level of passion and optimism. That this is why we have people that are from every conceivable walk of life, from every ethnic background, every sexual orientation, from 18 to 90 years old, a different opinion about everything. But when we're on the drop zone, none of these things matter. It's just all a very united family, support each other and share this thing together. And it's great. It's great. We have two, there's Paris is a big drop zone, and we have, lots of different rules to how to keep things safe. But there's two main rules on the drop zone. And one is be safe, of course. And the other one is don't be an asshole. Don't be mean. Don't be a mean person on the drop zone. You're here to have a great time. Everybody's here to have a great time. There's never a reason to be a jerk on a drop zone. And for the most part, people pretty much stick to those two things.
Yeah, for sure.
Brian, I got a couple of questions from people.
Thanks, Jan. Everybody, this is Jan Meyer. She's you're are you still like a conference director for USPA? What's your role with USPA?
I'm a national director for USPA.
So sorry. Yeah. She's one of the smartest, most wonderful people I've ever met. And I'm very thankful to have her here to help us do the sort of the back end of this stuff to keep it working right. So thank you, Jan.
Okay. So, since we don't have the audio for the participants, I'm just going to have to read these questions to you.
Well, we can make them live.
Well, all right. Okay. Turn that on and then we can just have them. The first question is from Ron Author. So Ron, stand by if Brian turns on the.
Yep. I'm going to do that. I'm going to give you the host. I'm going to give you the host role.
Okay.
And so now you can do whatever you want. You have the power.
Okay. All right. Hang on. Let me find Ron Arthur in my list.
Airplane.
Okay. I am going to allow Ron Arthur to talk.
Hey, how you guys doing? You got this?
Yeah, we got
You got you, Ron.
All right.
All right, Ron, here you go. Ask
Thank you.
Dan your question.
I sure will. I'm 58 years old. I got 135 jumps now, so I came real late to the party, and I'm loving it. But I can only get to the drop zone once a month, once every 3 weeks. I do 3 to 5 jumps. Now, I worked for a guy who was a flight instructor in the 60s, and he said there's two kind of pilots: full-time pilots and dangerous pilots. I was curious if you feel that the same thing applies to skydiving. In other words, if I come out there and I have my head in the game and I stay within my skill level, is it possible, and Dan, I'll quote your phrase here, is it possible or likely that I can have safe skydives with that level of participation?
Yeah, Ron, so you're looking at making how many jumps a month, basically? 5 jumps a month?
Yes.
So like 60 jumps a year?
Yeah.
That is on the lower end of jumps. The only downside of that is you never quite feel like, I'm sure at the end of the day, if you come out and do 3 or 4 jumps, I'm sure at the end of that day, you feel almost like a whole new man, really like you sunk your teeth back into it. You're feeling good, feeling like, okay, I've got it. And then you wait another month and it's almost like stepping back again. But as long as you really keep that in mind and keep that in perspective, as long as you're doing the visual, if you turn skydiving off for that month, so that you're not even thinking about it or doing anything and just show back up at the drop zone, I think it would be dangerous. If during that month you are going through your emergency procedures, you're visualized skydiving, you're thinking about skydiving, and when you come back to jump, you're keeping your jumps to reasonable types of, you're not gonna have the opportunity to improve your skills to a huge limit, to a huge level by doing so few jumps. That doesn't mean you can't have a great time jumping. Doesn't mean you can't love skydiving, but you'll have to, keep it small, be aware of your pull altitudes, give yourself that extra time, make sure you're not jumping. If the weather is questionable, you shouldn't go. If the group is too big, you shouldn't go. Because I think there is a way that, yes, you can very much enjoy the sport and keep it as safe as possible.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I really do keep my head on. That's why I'm here. And I'll drop a name. I dive at Elsinore, right down the street. So they have what's called Excel. And so I typically go, I try to make sure I'm at least at every one of those. So I've got instructors kind of planning out the jumps. But thank you very much. I appreciate you guys taking time out and taking my question and giving back to the sport so much.
Yeah.
Great, Ron. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I just want to add a teeny little bit there is that I've met quite a few people that's all they can do is make a few jumps in a year. But the thing is that so much of skydiving is the preparation, is the visualization, is the training, getting and hanging harnesses, and and of course now we can go to the wind tunnel and stay on top of aspects of our sport. And so as long as your head is still in the game, even if your body's not in the rig, it doesn't mean you're not skydiving. You're prepping for it. So Jan, do you have any more questions? It looks like we have a few people ready to go.
Yeah, I muted myself. Sorry. Our next question is from Aaron Hune. And he's got a question about currency since we've been sitting on the ground for a couple months. Aaron, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Aaron?
Oh my gosh,
Gotcha.
this is crazy.
Oh, Aaron.
Hi, DNBC. Hi, Brian Germain. This is crazy. My heart is pounding out of my chest just talking to you guys. This is crazy.
Great to hear from you, Aaron. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. So my question is, I am I just got my A license in November of 2019. I jump in Michigan, so the amount of time that we can actually jump is pretty limited due to weather. So I got my A license, and then I actually went down to Puerto Rico for the boogie down there and did some more jumping. And so I've been grounded since, and I'm trying to, keep up on like my EPs and going through the sim. And I've been going back through even all the AFF stuff, just taking the quizzes, just trying to keep myself refreshed. But even starting to think about drop zones near us that may be opening in the next few weeks, it kind of gives me a little bit of anxiety, just remembering like what it feels like to be in that plane door and first exiting, and kind of gives me that just a little bit of fear, I guess. So other than, I know visualization is huge while you're on the ground and prior to your jump and being in the plane. Other than visualization and deep breathing, what other, I guess, ideas do you have to kind of help shake off those heebie-jeebies, I guess?
Well, first, Aaron, don't fear the fear. You're wise to be a little antsy. You're wise. I mean, if you had as few jumps as you do and hadn't jumped in as long as you had and showed up at the drop zone and didn't feel apprehensive, then I'd be worried about you. But you should be a little bit scared. If I haven't jumped in a long time, or if I'm doing jumps that are new for me, I've got, I don't know if fear is the way, sometimes we interpret feelings as fear. But I'm a little more apprehensive. I'm thinking it through a little more. I'm being extra careful. So first of all, I think what you're describing to me in terms of how you feel and what you're doing all sounds perfect. You sound like you're just where you should be and should be approaching it with that respect and caution that it deserves. So I would make sure, and first and foremost, realize that in and of yourself, that's okay. Not only is it okay, that is the preferred feeling to have. And then think about, what is it specifically I'm nervous about? You've gone through your emergency procedures. You know what a good parachute looks like. You know how to fall stable. You know how to deploy your parachute. You know how to keep track of your altitude. With your canopy and good, decent weather conditions, you'll be able to land it safely. If you can go through and say to myself, you know what, I've got that, then you'll start to realize that you're not actually scared of something in particular. It's just the fear of approaching it all, which again is a healthy place to be. And I remember doing a balloon jump, my first balloon jump, and it was in Arizona, and it was over. There's nothing to land in. I looked down from the balloon, and there's no obstacles. I'm in the desert, and we're about 6,000 feet, so I'm plenty high. There's lots of altitude. There's nothing to land on. There's nothing to be scared of logically. And I was terrified. I was terrified to jump from the balloon just because it felt so weird. It felt so different. It felt so strange. And it was a funny, interesting experience because I just had to logically think about it, that it's okay for me to feel like this. My heart's pounding out of my chest, but there's nothing to be scared of. And when my logic could overrule my emotions at the moment, I got a good kick out of it. So I would think it through from that angle.
That was great. Yeah. And I would, as I was listening to you, what was coming to my mind is how important it is to not be afraid of the shame of fear and just not accept it. That if I'm nervous, I'm nervous. It's all right. It's okay. And if that nervousness is pointing out something specific, like you say, like it's windy and I have no business being in the air. Well, my fear is guidance that says, take the rig off and, go get a sandwich. And that's fine. But I think shame can push people to feel bad about the jump they didn't do and bad about the jump that they did do in the process of that feeling, make it worse and increase the risk.
It's the people who tell me they're not scared at all that worry me.
Yeah. Because they're not feeling their guidance, right? They're not feeling their gut saying, this is not okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That definitely helps. It makes sense. And it's kind of, going back to what you said, Dan, about the previous guy who had some questions, after you do those first, 3 or 4 jumps in that day, you just feel totally refreshed and kind of back to your normal, I guess. But it's like, I don't know, it's just going so long without like physically doing it. It's like, man, obviously, like you said, if I go step by step, I know what I'm doing. I've been trained this. I've been checked off on these things. I've got amazing people that are surrounding me that I can ask questions to. It's just not, it's kind of, again, it's being not current. And it's given me a little bit of anxiety and nervousness. And even just thinking about it just makes me a little nervous. So I just kind of wondered, if there was anything else that I could do to kind of help. But yeah, walking through it and kind of going, from the front, from the very first step to the end, just taking those deep breaths. It helps.
Aaron, everything you're saying, I'm loving.
Yeah.
And ours is a kind of sport that you should never take it for granted. It requires our respect. It requires us, in order to not be scared, you need to know you're on top of things. It requires you to make quick decisions in free fall when there's not much time. And you should never, people, when you see a lot of times, people are generally more nervous like this, even if they don't have a long time off while they're students. And then there's this window when people get to, between 100 and 300 jumps that they start to feel really relaxed, only because they haven't gotten scared enough to realize what can happen. And that's when I think that's the most dangerous place, is when you're not scared at all. I mean, I do a good gear check every jump. I do my safety things every jump. Am I because I'm scared? No, but I'm very respectful of the sport that we're doing. And I know I've got to be on my game. So it should never be something that you're just completely lax about.
I love that distinction you just made. the difference between being afraid and being sort of focused on the details and being respectful of the danger and recognizing that your gear check is making you safer, and then it'll give you a sense of power over your situation.
Aaron, I think you're all over it. You're going to do great.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that very much, guys.
absolutely. Don't worry. Trust yourself, right? You're powerful. You know where your handles are, and you know how to breathe slower. You know, do everything you can to sort of relax and enjoy. And when there's an intense wave of emotion, like surfing, you got to paddle with that wave harder and go woohoo. You can't fight the wave.
Absolutely.
When it's that you just go, this is as calm as I'm going to get, and it's acceptable because my left brain has analyzed all the details, and there's no reason not to go.
Sure. No, it
Right.
makes sense. Awesome. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Aaron. Thank you so much.
Okay, Brian and Dan, our next question is from Alex Glock. Alex, are you there? I unmuted you so you can speak. He's got a question about the future of skydiving.
Ooh, good one.
Well, calling here from Fort Lauderdale. Good afternoon to everyone. Spaceland Houston. Just joined the sport about 2 years ago. I'm 50, but I couldn't stop it. So got my coach rating, then got my AFFI. Just can pretty much stop jumping and just fell in love with the sport, right? But you know, we are 40,000 people in the U.S. I saw the tremendous impact of drop zone, point break, all this stuff. But most people I speak with still see the sport as a bucket list, right? They have to do that tandem jump. They will do it to look at fears. And conversely, you look at the Olympic sports and you see, ballroom dancing. So then how do we break this mold? What's the future of the sport? How do you see as a DTO or a manager? How do you see what can everyone do to take the sport to the next level?
Well, you know, I've been asking myself this question for the last 40 years that I've been involved, and it's, as we were saying before, it takes a unique individual to want to do this at all. And as much as I would love and have hoped over the last years that the sport really had the public exposure that I think it deserves, that got the respect that I think it deserves. It really comes down to that it's the most amazing sport in the world, and there's only a few of us that know it. But those few are so passionate about it and so driven to excel and so driven to grow our community and welcome more people to the party, that I haven't seen any negative implications in as far as the future of the sport goes. The sport continues to grow. The more disciplines that there are, the more people that stick with it because there's more ways to play. There's more things to do. When I first started jumping, there was no canopy piloting. Your parachute just saved your life. That was all it did. It wasn't a sport of its own. There wasn't wingsuits and free flying. It was just, we just do RW. That was what it was. And the style and accuracy guys couldn't believe we did that. But the more disciplines that grow, the more things there are for people to be passionate about and people to push and excel. The sport now, with the way the training is and the equipment is, I mean, when I started, you were pretty young and strong, or you didn't start. I mean, you didn't start jumping at 50 in 1980. It just hurt too much. The gear was too heavy, the landings were too hard. But now people can start. I see people starting at 60, 70, and people who don't quit, people who've been jumping forever, who are Pat Moorhead's 80's a good friend of mine. He's jumping regularly all the time. So I think the sport's future is sound. It's in good shape. At the same time, I don't know if or when we'll ever get to the Olympics or have that kind of recognition, as much as I would love to see it happen.
I don't think it matters, because it's evolving in so many different ways. I almost don't want to say future of the sport. I want to say futures, because it's what you make it. Some people say, oh, skydiving is stagnated. It's just, you go up and you do your load and you come down, whatever. And other people are constantly creating. They're constantly inventing new ideas, trying new things and pushing their limits, pushing what is possible. And so for them, it's a very different experience. So the future is personal. It's what you put into it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Jan, do we have some more awesome questions like these? There's a lot of good stuff coming in. I love it. Thank you.
I do, but I accidentally closed my my box.
Oh,
The next one is from George Nissan. I think he might have answered part of his question. He's got another currency question because he's got lots of people, lots of his friends have never had a 2-week layoff. And now what do we do with a couple of months off?
It's good.
George, can you?
Hi, yeah, I'm there. Have you got me?
Okay, there
we
you go.
got you, George.
Okay.
Hey, George.
Hey, and it's good to see you, Brian and Dan. Brian, I want to thank you for all you've done for the mental side and for your wonderful canopies that I've jumped for a long time. The Samurai in particular is a thing of wonder.
You've been jumping them as long as anybody.
Yeah, almost the A model, yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
And Dan, you personally for teaching me some more about jumping and about leading people. It's been amazing. My question is specifically, I've got a number of young friends that have come super far in the sport. You know, they two of them have made 1,000 jumps in a year. Start from scratch in 1,000 jumps. And a couple others that they've stayed super current. They've never had a layoff. And I know that mentally they aren't going to know how to deal with this. And I want some good, sharp ways to safely talk to my friends, and so that nobody makes a big mistake.
Yeah.
Any ideas?
I think it's different, you know, for different people, depending on what your level of experience is, depending on how much time you've had off. I think the USPA's recurrency guidelines are actually pretty good. You know, I mean, it's done for a broad spectrum of different people, but I think they're pretty good. I think the biggest mistake is just not to get ahead of yourself, not to think too much of yourself. If it's been that much time off, make sure you really do go through all the refresher items that you would go through in a refresher course. Don't take those things for granted. Don't assume you're just as sharp as you ever were. And if you are as sharp as you ever were, good. Go prove it to yourself, review everything, go through everything. On the first jumps back, you know, do a solo or a two-way. Get yourself back in the air in a nice step-by-step approach. You know, I feel with the number of, you know, jumps I have and not having, you know, having jumped just right up until they shut us down, I feel like I could go get on 100-way tomorrow, you know, without a problem. But I'd be stupid to do that. You know, my first day back, I'm probably just going to go out and just do a solo, enjoy the air, do a bunch of practice poles, be relaxed and pleased to just be in the sky and feeling the wind go by and taking it easy. So I think we just got to really be smart. Realize that even if you feel like you could do anything, it's still stupid to go and do anything. Do the right progression of jumps that have you where you need to be, and you'll be much more confident. You know, it won't take long for people who haven't been off that long and who have the experience, but it'll be a much smarter way to approach it.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that there's things to do now while we're on the ground to keep our fresh, you know? So, I mean, I've got a hanging harness in my house. I set it up on a chin-up bar, which is good for more than one thing, you know? And so I can hang up in my rig and just sort of get the feeling for it, touch my handles, and just the smell of the gear. You know what I mean? Just like to stay in the game, and then pull your main out when it's windy and go out to an open field and kite your parachute, fly it. You know, I mean, a lot of people have seen the video I just did with my kid. You know, we do that all the time. You go out in the field and you kite your parachute with a helmet on your head. Don't be stupid. And if it's too windy, you don't do it. And having somebody to help you is smart. But at least this way you're flying a little. You know, you get somebody pushing you from behind or pulling from the front, and you can actually rise up and fly. Is better than nothing.
Yeah, I like that. That's a very good point, and I thank you for it. And I thank you both. I'll let somebody else have their shot. I'll hope to see you both in the air soon.
Thanks, George.
Thanks, George.
Okay, our next question comes from Yvette, who is apparently a small drop zone jumper wanting to go to a big drop zone like Paris. And before we get to her question, and I unmuted her, I hope she's on here, but I just want to say that I started learning at Paris, and I thought all drop zones were like Paris, and this was back in 1981. And when I went to Arizona to go back to college, I jumped at a little drop zone Marana, and it was a little itty bitty one Cessna drop zone compared to Paris that had a DC-3. And I thought all drop zones were like Paris. So this is kind of the reverse question. If you come from a little itty bitty drop zone and you want to go to a big drop zone like Paris or Eloy or whatnot, what do you need to worry about? So Yvette, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Jan. Thank you very much. Guys, I'm really excited to be here. It's really nice to meet you and you amazing gentlemen. Get to be on this all the way from South Africa. So
thank you.
yeah, so I actually learned at a very small drop zone, and most of the drop zones are really tiny. It's like a one Cessna C182, C206, 6 jumpers, maybe with 2 tandems in. So there's basically 4 canopies on 90% of the jumps I've done, except for maybe a boogie or 2 at a King Air drop zone where there's a maximum of 13 or maybe 14 canopies. And then to go and visit a boogie in the States, something like Elsinore or something, and I see 30, 40 canopies, 50 canopies in there, or I don't even know, 40 canopies to an Otters or something like that. So how do I know? I mean, there's nothing really in between. So when do you just go and visit a drop zone like that and face all those canopies?
How many jumps do you have, Yvette?
230.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The first thing you do is show up. You know, come on out. You know, be brave with it, but also, you know, be smart. You want to make sure wherever you are, it is a bit overwhelming the first time you see that many canopies in the air. There's that many different things to pay attention to. There's many more variables now that you have. So first is make sure you get a really, really good briefing from the drop zone, and make sure you feel part of the briefing is not just do this, and this. Part of the briefing is also that they understand where you're coming from, that they welcome you in, they understand the fear or pressure that goes along with it, and they want to give you a good plan for how to get past that. And it'll probably be that the first jump is going to be a solo, or maybe a 2-way with one of the organizers or coaches there. So you really, you know, you're not spending the whole time thinking about the skydive you're on. You have enough time to become familiar with the aircraft, familiar with the landing patterns, familiar with the whole DZ as it is. But just as we were saying with being uncurrent and coming back, you just want to take it step by step like this. Make sure you don't go to a new drop zone from a small drop zone. And even if you have the skill, the flying skill to go get on a 20-way, you don't want to go get on a 20-way the first time that you've ever been to a big drop zone. Take things step by step in this sport, whether it's your progression in the canopies you do, whether it's your progression throughout a particular discipline or into other disciplines. It's really important you do it step by step and don't get ahead of yourself. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with this. But I know if you came to Paris, and we have people coming all the time, it's a very warm welcome. We understand exactly where you're coming from. We have good ideas for the kind of jumps you should do, depending on your skill level. If it's just a good briefing and going to do a solo, or if it's, you know, we've got an organizer here, they'll go up with you, do a 2-way, just so you have someone there with you to be comfortable. It's your responsibility and the drop zones to make this as easy and simple a transition for you as possible.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be huge fun. The first, I mean, you remember the first time you go to a big boogie, right, Dan? Did you go to like World Free Fall, that kind of thing? It's overwhelming, and yet the fun factor, because there's so many jumpers there, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. And I highly recommend, to add to Dan's really, really good points here, is that if you can fly your parachute deliberately next to somebody else on a regular basis, where you work out hand signals, you work out the plan, and you're doing a two-way, so to speak, after opening, and maybe open higher, and you get used to being near somebody and cooperating in your flow of motion, then when you're in the pattern at a big drop zone or at a boogie, and you look around and go, there's somebody there and there's somebody there, and people tend to freak out if they're not used to flying near other parachutes and getting eye contact and kicking your legs and verifying that communication and that acceptance of the connection, right? If you don't do that, I don't want to be next to you in the pattern. If somebody's afraid of being near other parachutes, I really don't want to be near you, deliberately or by accident. So please fly with an experienced canopy pilot next to you.
And as Brian was saying, on the first jump, you probably want to get out last, do a solo or a two-way, pull a little bit high so that you can watch what's going on. Don't get out and put yourself in the middle of it. And you should, back to the fear thing, you should logically be able to look at that situation and think, okay, you know what? I'm going to be landing pretty much by myself after everybody else does. I'll get to watch them in the pattern. I'll get to pick a nice open space if there are people around. If it's too crowded, you should be able to logically think through that and think, you know what? I got it. Yeah. You should also be able to logically think, if I have 200 jumps and I haven't done much bigger than a Cessna, and I'm going to go get on a 20-way at a drop zone I've never seen, well, that should scare the crap out of you. Yeah. So listen to yourself but as Brian was saying, it's going to be fun. You're going to love it. Skydivers are great, and the more of us that are around, the more fun that we have together.
It's very true. It's very
opposite of social distancing.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, come and do it. Just make sure, if you are going to pull a little bit higher at the tail end of the load, talk to the tandem instructors that are going to be exiting towards the end. Talk to the pilot and find out if there's another otter that's about to drop right after you get out, because it's possible that you being at 7,000 feet with your bigger parachute is going to be a problem for the next load, right? So talk to the pilots, talk to organizers, talk to tandem masters, and find a way to reduce your risk, because if you can scale down your risk a little, you'll scale down your fear.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank you. I really appreciate you checking in from South Africa.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Our next question is from Kelly Infante. I hope I pronounced that right.
You got it.
It's for Brian.
Hi,
Kelly,
guys.
are you there?
I am. Hi, guys. Hi, Dan and
Hey,
Brian.
Bill.
Nice to
Hello.
virtually meet you. Brian,
watch out, Brian. This is Kelly's one of our locals, man. You're in trouble here now.
Great. Challenge me. Challenge me. Do I need a calculator?
Brian, I've read Transcending Fears. I'm, pretty anxious by nature, and obviously skydiving, makes me very nervous. I have about 560 jumps, and, a lot of things that you said in your book resonated with me. And I was just wondering kind of how that came about and what the progression of fear has been over the course of, your jumping time.
Oh, my own personal experience. Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I started off as the little kid that was scared of heights, to be honest with you. I didn't let it stop me, but I was really terrified of all different heights kind of situations. And the way I've dealt with it is I just don't let it stop me. I worked on a sailboat, up in the rigging and things like that when I was 14 years old, and so I was, terrified up there in the ratlins out on the yard arms of this big, tall ship. And even though I was scared, I just kept pushing at it gently. And if you get to the point where you're frozen and, you're locked up in a heights kind of situation, it forces you to become heroic, even though you realize you're terrified and you're going to be in trouble. Suddenly this life force wells up in you. It says, calm down and breathe better and focus on the next step. What's the next step? Whether it's up or down or sideways, what's the next step? And for me, that's what that method got me through so much. You know, I mean, my accident in paragliding where I was all busted up. Um, you know, it was terrifying to get back on the horse. You know, it was interesting for me though, getting back in the skydiving wasn't as challenging as getting back in a paraglider. It's a different feeling. The noise that a paraglider makes, it kind of talks to you in the turbulence. That really got my goat. It really, really did. And so for me, this process has been tapping into my power over my emotions with the function of expanding my reality, expanding what I can do, and not letting my fear stop me, and alchemizing it. You know, in the way that alchemists would try to turn lead into gold. I think we're capable of doing that, to go into our hot kitchen, to go into the areas of our lives that really do get us, you know, kind of keyed up, and find a way to bring out our own brilliance. It's inspiring. You know, you inspire yourself when you do it. You just can't punish yourself for being scared, because it's, you know, it is what it is. You keep pushing at it, and eventually it softens.
Okay, so you found eventually it does soften over time. It's not something that I would obviously let me stop myself from skydiving, but you know, there's just that moment before every skydive where I just have to take that really big extra breath and just do it. And I'm just kind of wondering if that lessens over time.
Yes. Well, it does. It does. But also your ability to discern whether this is in the negative end of the fear spectrum or the positive. In other words, is this pointing out an actual danger? You know, where I'm in over my head. You know, it's a night naked jump, and it turns out a 40 way. It was supposed to be a 5-way. You know, it starts to escalate, and you go, all right, I need to back down my risk level so I feel better. So that can be very helpful. But if you feel bad, you feel adrenaline, but it feels bad, it's time to step down your risk. It's time to step away. It's time to hold still and keep your eyes still, and big, you know, big, slow breathing, and let your higher self come in and whisper to you, because it doesn't yell. It doesn't yell, don't do this jump.
Kelly, so much of it is also the preparation. You know, I think everybody, before they have a malfunction, is worried about, I hope I'll be able to handle this if I have a malfunction.
Yeah.
But in the process of being worried about it, you know what? If you're worried about whether you'll be able to handle it, go practice your emergency procedures again and again and again. Make your decision-making plan so that you know, if I look up and the parachute's not good, here's what I'm doing. Expecting the problem, know your plan for the problem, have rehearsed your plan for the problem. And once you do that enough, then you'll be like, you know what? I got this. I got this. And it doesn't mean the fear goes away. But again, the fear in and of itself, what we interpret as fear, is also just physiologically something that could make us more prepared. We're that much stronger. Our adrenaline is kicking a little more. Our blood's pumping a little more. We're breathing a little bit more. You know what? That makes us stronger. That makes us sharper also, as long as we are calm and not freaking out about it, and the right prep. So think about what it is. What is it I'm actually scared of? And again, if I was going on a 20-way free fly jump right now, I absolutely should be horrified. I'm terrible at free. I'm going to hurt somebody, and almost certainly myself. And if I wasn't scared of that, then I'm a complete idiot. Going on 100-way on my belly right now, you know what? You never take it for granted. But I've thought this through enough. I've done it enough. I'm pretty sure I've got it. A malfunction, I've got my plan for that, and I've rehearsed it a lot. But it's never that I just don't care about it. I just know that I'm ready and prepared. So think about what it is you're actually scared of, and make sure you are confident and prepared.
Totally. Rehearsal, and trust
Awesome.
yourself.
Thank you guys so very much.
Yeah, thanks.
You know, one thing to add to it, guys, I know one thing to add, I have the habit of talking too much. But there's also just understanding what you're scared of, you know. And I remember I competed for years and years, and I'd be scared in competition. I'd be scared, but I thought about it, and I was like, what am I scared of exactly? I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm skydiving here, and I know I've prepared all the safety things for skydiving. It's just a 4-way team. or an 8-way team I've got a ton of jumps with. You know, what am I scared of? And I thought, man, I'm scared I'm going to screw up. Like, well, really, does anyone actually give a shit if I screw up or not? Do I care? Is it going to make any difference in my life? You know, we're talking about skydiving here. And when I put that in perspective also, it took a lot of the fear away. So understanding what we're scared of, and if it's worthy of us being scared, is an important thing as well.
Yeah. When you were talking there, I was immediately hearing what we need to be paying attention to is the shame of fear and the fear of shame.
Yeah.
There's both.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
That
was very, very helpful. I'm very
Okay, our next questions come from Sachin Kapoor. I hope I pronounced that right. They have a couple of questions for both of you, I believe. So Sachin, your mic is on?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Yep.
Can you hear me, Bran?
Yes,
we can.
We got you.
Hello, Sachin. It's great to hear your voice.
Yeah. Yeah. Bran, do you remember me, man?
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. First of all, Dan, I'd like to tell you that Bran inspired me. I'm from India. I didn't have the money to do the tandem skydive. I did a couple of, generosity.com, some of the fundraisers, but didn't work out till I collected money. I wanted to do that first tandem jump. I went to Thailand and did the tandem jump. Brand really inspired me to do it. Mentally, you should be prepared. If you want to do it, you can do it. Nothing can stop you from that. And last year in May itself, I did it. And Brand, after that, I read your book also, your book above everything else. That was really good. It inspired me a lot for that. Right now, I'm just in the tandem stage. I've done one tandem. Now, preparing mentally for my A license. I want to go for the license part. So done one jump, but still a fear is there that while I'm preparing for that, what next or what should I do it? But the trust or instinct in me saying that you should go for it. Once you have seen that the worst fear is fear itself, it affects all of your spheres of life. It makes you mentally also calm once you're done your skydiving. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but my instincts are going to go for it. Then I just wanted to hear your views for that, sir.
Yeah. Well, you have to get down to business, right? Once you decide that you want to do AFF, it's time to start learning or getting into the details, because that's what keeps you safe in this sport. I would say it's learning the information, but making sure you're learning from the right people, the right sources. And part of that is about finding people that are really knowledgeable, but it's also people that resonate with you. Somebody that is the kind of teacher that you enjoy learning from. And that can be done remotely, of course. And there's more and more training programs in skydiving that can be done remotely. Just sink your teeth into that. Sink your teeth into the next step. What do I do to push down my risk with an increase in knowledge? We always say you want to make sure that your knowledge bucket fills up before your luck bucket runs out. But I think that it's not so much a luck thing. It's just risk. And risk can be managed. It can be minimized through information, through training, which is a physical process, not just in your head. That's why I try to get people to whatever in any way that they can hang up in a harness and touch their handles and get used to the adrenaline that just kicks in just from hanging in a rig. And if you can't do that yet at home, maybe you can make something up, right there where you live. Maybe you can find a way to get an old rig that's not even airworthy anymore and mailed to you. I'm sure that somebody out here has an old rig that they can mail you in India right now, right? Probably a show of hands. And we can get you something where you can rig it up and start your training right now. And then the next time you go to Thailand, you'll feel more ready.
Yeah, I just applied for the US visa also, and I got the visa in December, but I wanted to visit in US in July, but due to COVID pandemic, it has been postponed right now. So hopefully going for the course, the US will be the first destination to go for the course for that. That is what I was planning for that.
Your story is so inspiring because we've been talking back and forth for quite some time now, years. You're like, someday I want to.
Yeah, I remember. You remember me? Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, I remember, Brand. Surely.
Yeah.
After that, I read the book of this Dan BC also. I've heard his TEDx talks also. Really inspiring. You know, what was the worst thing could happen to a person? Let's do it. Go for the risk. Let's take it. It's not about the age. You know, at any age you can do that. You know, it is not 18 or 28 or even 35. If you do something like that, you step into the unknown. You know, step into the unknown thing, and that gets you out of your comfort zone. When you do for the unknown, when you go for the unknown, step you out from the comfort zone, I think. And that affects all phases of life. You feel calm, like whatever what may go, but you feel confident. Yes, once you have done these things, I mean, the tandem diver also who was there with me, and if you can do this thing, Juka was there in tandem skydive there in Thailand. He said, you do this thing, you can do anything in life. You know, that's really inspiration from those guys who have done around thousands of jumps.
Yep. Yeah. That's great. I'm so glad that you were able to connect today. This is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dan, also inspiring millions of people under there. Okay.
Our next question is from Marcus Springer. Marcus, are you there?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Hello, Marcus.
How you doing, guys?
Great.
Doing great, man.
Good. So I originally had a different question, and I want to ask Dan if he gained some weight over the lockdown, but I got an invitation from him this week for a record, so I'm skipping that question. Otherwise, knowing him, he would kick me out immediately. But you know, Dan, one of the things that's most significant for me that I learned from you is the concept of complacency. And you know, it's now part of my routine. When I go up in a plane, I think about you because I've heard you probably 100 times giving your safety briefing on large events about the concept of complacency, and it's one thing that's really in my mind and saved my ass a couple of times, and I'm pretty sure it saved also lives. So I think it would be great if you could share that, because it applies to basically everybody who is in that sport. Doesn't matter if you are a level 1 AFF student or if you have 10,000 of jumps. It's so simple and it's so impactful.
I mean, complacency is huge, and it's generally at the core and at the root of just about all the other problems, safety specifically, that we have in skydiving. We become too comfortable. You know, things don't go wrong that often. It almost works all the time. It's usually pretty good. We become too lax. We become too at ease. We think we underestimate the risk, and we overestimate our preparedness to handle that risk, and we get ourselves in trouble. And it's usually not the case with newer jumpers. You know, when people are going through student status or up to their A license and doing new things, people are usually the right amount of scared. But it's, as I was saying, it's after you've got 100 jumps to 300 in that range that we start to become complacent. And then the only thing that stops us from continuing to become complacent is usually at some point we scare the crap out of ourselves. And if we're lucky enough to live through scaring the crap out of ourselves, then a lot of times we start to take it more seriously and become more prepared. And it's such a long conversation. I want to do two things. I want to, one, recommend everybody go to my YouTube page and look at the Safety Day video, because it pretty much addresses that question in particular. But in brief, there's nothing hard about handling things in skydiving. Your emergency procedures are not difficult. It's not hard. They used to be harder with the older equipment. Now that on itself is not that hard. Flying your canopy in a way that leads to a safe, soft landing is not that hard, right? None of these things are that hard, which leads us to think that they're easy, which is a different thing. They need our full attention. They need our focus. They all have to be done. You know, emergency procedures aren't difficult, but they are very time sensitive. They need to be done calmly, correctly, and now. So you need to be making decisions. You need to be recognizing what's going on in the air, processing the information, and instinctively making the right decision. There's much to this, and I approach every skydive and I prepare for the skydives like this, expecting everything that can go wrong to go wrong every jump. And I have a plan for everything that can go wrong. I've rehearsed and practiced the plan. I've tortured you through many safety briefings, listening to my plan. But I think approaching it that way, and I can't remember, I haven't had malfunction in years, but I think the next jump is going to be one. I think approaching it that way keeps us way sharper. It takes the fear away from me. I've had people tell me, man, doesn't it, when you think about this every jump and you're expecting everything to go wrong every jump, doesn't that make you more scared? I'm like, no, actually it makes me less scared because I am on it. I'm ready to go. But I would highly recommend watching the video on the YouTube page. I think it answers your question in more detail, Marcus.
Thank you, brother. Stay safe.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, I think you guys did a great job with the safety day stuff. USPA did a great job. I worked hard. There's a bunch of different safety day videos. I think why not, take them all in, right? Because to me, complacency is this like leaning back on your laurels going, I know what I'm doing. I'm not, do you? Right? Because everybody that went in was sure they knew what they were doing, right? And so, whether it's airplane safety stuff or it's gear safety stuff, there's something you don't know. There's a lot, all of us. And
it's not just knowing it. It's not just knowing it. It's being prepared to actually use the information. Right. Being able to pass a written test is not knowing it. It's not. You need to be able to instinctively respond when things are happening, and that comes with not just the knowledge, but having taken the knowledge and trained it into your habits, into your discipline.
Yeah. So you're ready to handle the unexpected version of this stuff, right? Because how many times have you had that, Dan, where you just like, I didn't know that could happen? It's part of the sport. Didn't see that coming. And so you see.
Yeah.
Okay, our next question is from Kevin Giardarni. I'm having trouble unmuting you, I think. Kevin, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay.
Hey, Kevin.
Before you start, Kevin, Brian and Dan, I've got like 20 messages here, which I haven't even read. So if you guys could tighten up your answers, so we can get to more of these guys.
Got it.
Okay.
Got like the two most verbose people in the industry. I don't know if we're capable, but
right. Okay. Well, I could do something like share my screen or something to cut you guys off to let you know that you're talking too long. Okay.
You're not the first person to tell me that, Jen.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay, tighten it up because we got more questions. We got at least 20 more questions. I want. We should be able to handle it. Let's go through it. Okay. So Kevin, go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Well, thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to be on the Zoom with Dan and Brian. A great opportunity to learn from you guys. But my question was about another question about currency. A couple of the other questions were about the procedure getting back to the sport after only a couple of weeks. Myself, I've been out of the sport for 3 years. I have my A license and 56 jumps. And the last season I jumped was 2017. And I was just wondering about how does the approach at recurrency, how does it differ from being out of the sport for so long as opposed to maybe only a couple weeks?
Go for it, Dan.
To talk now, Brian.
Now you're gonna
Kevin, I would back it back up. If you've been out in the sport for that long with that few jumps, you probably want to do go through the entire first jump course worth of material. Review it all. There's no downside to doing that. And be visualizing these things, go through it, rehearse all the procedures. You'll be amazed how when you exit the airplane, the actual free fall part of it, it's amazing how that comes back to you. Once you'll be nervous about it, you'll hit the air and your body will usually remember what to do. But I think it's worth stepping back to the beginning, making sure there's so much information, making sure you've got it all, you've got it in your head, you've practiced it, and then take a very gentle progression forward to ease yourself back in.
Yeah.
I was-
Particularly the complicated stuff, you know, so like the Australian Parachute Federation did a great job of showing all these different MALs and procedures to them. That would be a great place for you to, you know, sort of keep your brain fresh in the complicated end of it, because free fall is not complicated. That's body, that's somatic. Whereas making that decision about what, you know, whether to keep the parachute or not, it gets more complicated every year as we learn more, right? So I would start with that kind of thing. USPA also has a lot of wonderful resources. You know, just keep your brain warm. You know, you keep that skydiving brain warm.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Kev. Let's go, Jen. Let's keep it moving here.
Yeah, I know. What she's like.
Okay, yeah, okay, all right.
Hurry up and wait.
I'm going like, all right, that was Kevin. Let me find out who's next.
Because I could have talked a lot longer to Kevin. That's like more I wanted to say.
Brian, we didn't realize between the two of us we could go on all day on these things.
Oh hell yeah! Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Which is fine.
There, Dan Rowley.
Hello, Dan. Is your mic hot?
Hello, Dan.
Let me make sure his mic is on. I don't think it's on right now. Hang on.
I see him.
Dan? Dan, are you there?
I'm here, Dano. It's Dano.
Dano, right on. Welcome.
I actually didn't have a question. I was just making a comment that for that new skydiver who was looking to come out to Paris coming from a small drop zone, maybe coming during the week was a good idea. That's it.
Good point. That's a really good point. When things are moving a little slower, people have more time for you. Nice.
Yeah, less canopies in the air.
It's not always the case at Paris, but most places that would be.
Yeah.
And again, thanks guys for being on, and thanks for sharing the good news.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dano.
Thank you, Dano. Excellent point. So who else we got, Jan?
Okay. Like I said, I hadn't read these messages. Some of them are just thanking you guys, like Ross Henley. Let me get Ross here, and he can thank you. Ross, are you there?
Still muted. No, he's not.
Sorry, I was just going to say that safety video, that was safety day video on YouTube was really exceptional. I was just, that's all I was saying.
Oh, great. Yeah, and every time, because I'm sure done, well, I've lost track of the number of safety day talks that I've done, and I'm sure Dan, you're like, yeah, no clue. Every year, right? Every year. And I'm amazed how well skydivers step up as a group at their individual drop zones and just, you know, come together and do that. And this year we were deprived of that. So I think it's Dan, good.
Okay, I don't know whose video that or audio that's from. It's not me.
Dano's, yeah. His phone
Okay.
call. Yeah. I had that happen yesterday. I was doing a live stream of my baby chickens, and all of a sudden my cousin called me, and all the chickens ran away. So, yeah, it's cool. Safety day is never ending. Every day, safety day. That's why we're doing this. So, what else we got?
I think that's it, actually, because
couldn't be.
Most of the other things that the ones I didn't read.
There was a lot of questions that came in ahead of time that I could.
I don't have any of those.
Okay, I do, and I think Dan some of these, like Bobby Aronson, who was live just a minute ago. He's if Bobby, if you can find him, some of these questions are from him. So the first one was, what's the best way to hook up your main when your packed D bag has been disconnected for some time to ensure that you don't twist up your risers? So I'm going to answer that right off the bat and say, pull your parachute out of the bag. Don't be lazy. If you're, yes, there are tools. I've got lots of zipper bags, you know, where you can snap the risers down. Most of the manufacturers have their demos in those kinds of bags. But it's just easier and safer to just pull the parachute out and do a real continuity check for sure. That said, you know, I've done things like, you know, when I'm doing a repack, I'll use one of those bags or I'll tape the risers down to the ground so the risers don't flip around. But why do you want to be in the plane wondering if your parachute's on backwards when you could have spent, you know, an extra 10 minutes to repack the canopy?
Well, I'm glad I went ahead and watched your no sweat video yesterday. I was bored out of my mind, and I figured I would go ahead and learn how to pro pack, since at Hazelton me only flat pack, and I don't want to be that guy. So you know, so I'm doing the continuity check, and the what do you call it, the slider is all twisted up, and I'm sitting there for 45 minutes. I can't figure out what the hell is going on. And finally I see that something's going on with the risers, because I pushed the slider all the way up and I was able to figure it out. But I just, you know, I was just glad I did it, because I wouldn't want to lose my canopy because of something so stupid.
Due diligence. This happened to me. I sent one of my parachutes. Actually, I left it when I was in Estonia, you know, in one of those zipper bags and the whole thing. And I got it back in the zipper bag, in the D bag, packed and ready. And I was in a bit of a hurry before I left for Dubai, which was the last course that I did 3 months ago. And I just put it in my rig, like as if I had packed it and done the work. And and maybe Dan, you can speak to this too. I had a funny feeling, like cosmic, like, and I just in case, I pulled the thing out, and it was as tangled as you would see after you have a cutaway. It was, I would have cut away. There's zero chance that I would have landed under that main. And, you know, where does that information come in, that gut level, something's off? I have no clue, but I'm glad that guidance is there. And the bottom line is, if you die from complacency, you'll die angry. You know,
yeah.
Due diligence.
So will we.
Check it. And so will we. Exactly.
We'll be angry too.
Yeah, for sure. Chrissy, you won't be hearing it, but yeah. So you go the extra mile, man, right? You go the extra mile to check the little details, and you recheck it, and you breathe, and you slow down, and maybe you walk away and you come back and check it again.
And that sick feeling in your stomach is basically complacency. If you had done your due diligence, you wouldn't have that feeling.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well, I guess that leads to the next question, though. I'm sorry to take up so much time, but as far as risers being changed out, you know, Mirage, they say 200 to 400 jumps, and, you know, I bought a used rig, and I have no idea how many jumps those risers have gone through. So, I mean, is there any, like, you know, sure tell signs that these need to be replaced immediately, or, you know, how does that work?
200 to 400 jumps for a set of risers? That's
what Mirage says on their website. Yeah.
Well, they sell risers for a living. God bless them. You know, thank you. Right? You should replace your main after every jump. You know. But no, I don't want to poke fun, but the truth is that there, if you take care of your gear, in other words, you keep your the components that the sun will kill, right? You keep them out of the sun. If you keep it out of the dirt, if you make sure that you're not letting things get hot in the back of your car, in your trunk or whatever, man, risers. I mean, I've got risers that I pull out that are 20 years old or more, but I inspect them carefully and I make sure that everything's all right. Line sets, definitely you should be careful with. But,
cool.
Yeah, that's my thought. I'm not going to give you a jump number.
No. All right.
That wouldn't be a safe bet, for anybody to recommend. How many jumps go on risers, but you can do a lot of jumps on risers. This is my experience. I've never broken a riser. Dan, have you ever broken a riser, Dan?
I'm trying to think if I've ever replaced a riser.
Exactly. Well, the toggles get nasty, and sometimes they don't stow properly, and they pop out. And in a toggle release can be a cutaway. And so that's, to me, that's the area that wears out. Making sure you check that little loop, you know, the little
Yep.
loop, because they can get nasty. And if you drag your rig when you're stowing your lines, if that's all facing down, like when you tie your risers together with a pull-up cord, now you're dragging the 3 rings on the carpet. That's not good for you. I'm curious, Dan, because you started back, you know, in the day like I did, packing rounds as your first pack jobs. I was like, what, 6 years after you, we were still doing the same stuff. We dragged the rig when we stowed the lines. Do you still do that with a drag mat, or do you walk your lines up when you?
I walk it to the rig.
You do walk it to the rig. I'm just curious.
No, I think Dan hires a packer.
He hires a packer.
He
When,
doesn't-
when I pack,
when
I pack, I walk it up to the rig.
I'm just curious, but dragging the risers face down is dangerous. And that's one of the areas that wear out. And making sure that the housing that should have a hard housing inside there, in other words, where the end of the cutaway cable goes, right? That 5 or 6 inches that's inside the riser, make sure that housing is not free to come out, because the tacking that keeps it in there on some of them can allow that housing to slip out and actually get into the loop and interfere with your cutaway. So you got to know what to look for with all this gear maintenance stuff. You got to know what to look for and where it's likely to wear out. And I'm realizing that was not a short answer. But it needs
have your rigger inspect your gear. Don't wait till 180 days to have a new inspection. Definitely have them. If there's any question, take it to your rigger to look at.
And sit there with them and have them teach you, right? You know, they say, you know, the word doctor actually means teacher. And to me, rigger should mean teacher too, because they're not going to be there every pack job. They're not going to be there every time you pick up your parachute and to say, oh, look, here's that stitch that got pulled where you got it snagged on a nail on the deck and it, you know, retracted the threads on your external stitching of your non-loaded ribs. And now your parachute's going to blow up on the next jump. It's your job to look for these little details with, you know, what my kids call eagle eyes, you know, sharp focus, like laser beam focus. It's your job. It's your job. So learn all you can.
Okay, I think we have one more question from Sachin Kapoor again.
Sure.
Sachin, do you have another question?
Yeah, this is for the Dan. Dan, particularly it is said that work is done behind the scenes. The competition is the easy part. This is just to the reference of your book above all else. How difficult is it to maintain that position once you struggled hard and your desire to be the world champion was there? And how it is difficult to maintain that world championship or sustain that once you have become the world champion? How do you feel mentally that you have to keep going for the next 3-4 years? You have to be the world champion once again. I mean, or you feel satisfied with that? I've achieved my goal. I've done my part. Let's now help youngsters or other people to loosen up their fears and go up the level that you have gone yourself. Just wanted to ask.
I'm sorry, Sachin's cutting in and out on me a bit. Brian or Jen, were you able to understand the whole question?
Not me.
Unfortunately, Sachin, yeah, your connection is not awesome. So every other word was sort of dropped out of there. But I got that that you're curious about, you know, the high level, high performance experience of, you know, the pursuit of world championship podium status and that sort of thing. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Just was Dan, I was asking you, like, he's been the world champion. He's strive for being the world champion. It took him time for that. He made the team himself. You know, I've read the book of itself. But once a person becomes a world champion, how difficult is it to maintain that level once you've achieved the position that you strive for? And after that, you know, maintain that.
You have to, if I understand the question, it was after you've already won the world championships, how do you motivated to do that again?
Yeah, sustain that for a long time. You know, I mean, it's
one, there has to be more. The goal has to be bigger than just winning the world championships. If that was the only goal and you won, then you're done. But to win the world championships, the goal is always something beyond the win itself. You're trying to become the best you can possibly be. You're trying to push your team to achieve levels that your team has never done or that no one has ever done. And that is a never-ending process in skydiving. So even after we won the world championships, we still knew that we could be so much better. And we loved the activity, we loved the sport, we loved the challenge so much that it was worth continuing to keep doing that. The actual gold medal was just the icing on the cake, but to have the opportunity to continue doing that and pushing ourselves further was the real primary goal. It's more difficult when you're the team who's out ahead. There's no one for you to look at as clearly. When you're a team that's learning, there's all sorts of teams that are better than you, who you can watch what they do, how they do what they do, learn from them, steal information. When you're the team who's on top, you don't have as much to work with. So it's more difficult actually at that level. But it starts with just loving the activity itself so much that win or don't win, if you're capable of continuing to get better and you have that opportunity, it's hard to say no to it.
Yeah. So you mean the best position is when you think in that way that I'm going to give my best in every field, whatever it's skydiving or any field, I'll give my best for that. That is the best mental position to achieve your goal. Whether I lose or whether I win, doesn't matter. If you give your best, that is the best mental strength thing you can give to yourself as well as a team.
Yeah. Yep. I've broken off on jumps at competitions and tracked away thinking, man, we killed that. We killed that. You know, I bet no one is going to touch that jump, only to land and find out we got our butts kicked. But you know what? It was still a great jump. It was the best we could do. We had nothing left in that jump. It was a fantastic jump. And I didn't feel worse for it. I felt a lot of respect for the team that beat us. But that's as good as we could do. And so that's, it's hard to be upset when you go up there and you actually do your best performance, regardless of where you place in that.
Yeah, it's like there's internal metrics and external metrics, right? So in other words, how many points did you do in time? And then you have, you know, that in comparison to how you did before, right? That's internal within your own context. And then you have external, where I'm competing against other people and I look at their scores in comparison to mine. But then there's this third category that I think is the one that creates sustainability, which is how do I feel about it? You know, regardless of the numbers, how do I feel about it? Did I have fun in the process as I was climbing the mountain? Did I, you know, was it about standing on the peak? Was it about the whole climb up and the whole climb down and the sandwich that we ate halfway up and the eagle that flew over our heads at that one time, and the moments where I got terrified and locked up and managed to push through it and get my head back on? To me, the journey is what it's all about anyway. To me, that's where we keep ourselves in the game, loving it.
For any sport also. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, since there's no more questions in the
there was a couple others that came in that I was just noticing earlier, because I tried to field a few extra questions just to make sure that we wouldn't you know, run out of content, because sometimes people clam up. You know, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to ask something that sounds stupid. But the truth is there's no such thing as a stupid question, really.
Yeah, if you've got more questions, Brian, go ahead.
Well, one of them that I sent over to Dan was about hard deck, about how do we relate to it? And there's the numerical aspect of hard deck. And Dan, you had some interesting points last night when we were having our little back and forth exchange on email. So I'm just curious. You said you have sort of a different perspective on hard deck than other people.
Well, I mean, there's different altitudes, and I hear different terms for them also. Yeah. But the first hard deck is usually where you need to decide what you're going to do. If you're going to decide to cut away or not. If you're going to decide, can I land this parachute? And then there's also altitude where you're not cutting away from anything. You're keeping every bit of nylon you have and adding more to it. And in the process of evaluating if your canopy is working or not, I think it takes a lot of time to sit there and continue to check your altitude. You've got to realize you're probably coming down pretty fast. It's probably difficult to check your altitude because it's not like you're just sitting there calmly most of the time with a malfunction and you can just sit there and check your altitude wherever it is. Or you're waiting for an audible sometimes, which may or may not work depending on how quickly you're coming down. And all of these things to me can be quite distracting. And being someone who started jumping before we had all these extra devices and all these ideas, I want to know the altitude where I'm deploying at. Where am I starting from? So I make sure when I'm deploying, I know how high I am. I try to toss out by 3,000 feet. Not that I won't do it before if it's clear enough, it's fine. But 3 grand is a good spot, I think, to be throwing a pilot chute out. And I've already decided.
I'm a high puller. I pull it for it.
I've already decided what my actions are if I look up and I'm not literally 100% sure that if there is any kind of a problem, I'm 100% sure I can fix it. If I'm not 100% sure I can fix it, I am cutting away right now. And since I know how high I was when I started, I don't need to take the time to go back and check that because I'll just be lower by the time I find out how high I am at that moment. I know the range that I'm in and I want to, and I make the decision, I'm cutting away immediately. So I think otherwise there's so many, especially with younger jumpers, well, at this altitude, I'll do this, at this altitude, I'll do that, on this one, they're trying to evaluate, can I get out of this or can I not get out of this? And I think that whole conversation in their heads delays action. And the biggest problem that we have is people take too long sometimes. Right. In the history of skydiving, other than doing crew, I am unaware of anybody who ever got hurt or killed because they cut away too soon.
Yeah.
The people who have taken too long, there is a long list of accidents and fatalities. So for me, I'm not trying to figure out, last time I had a malfunction, I came down and people were, what was wrong with it? And I was like, I don't know. Well, what kind of malfunction you have? I don't know. Shit was no good. I didn't need to know what was wrong with it. It wasn't good. I know what a good parachute looks like, and that wasn't one of them. So I think for me, the most important altitude is I know how high I am when I pull, and I'm not taking time to make the decision. If I don't like what I see, I'm done with it.
Right.
Dan, can I add in something about that? Especially if you got a spinner. The thing is that if you look up at your parachute and you see the horizon, that means you got a spinner and you're most likely not going to get out of it. So if you see the horizon behind your canopy, it's time to cut away.
The other thing is it only becomes harder too. The centrifugal force makes it more difficult to execute. Finding your handles takes longer if you're in a big spinning malfunction of some kind. The blood is rushing away from your head. I mean, the whole process, things just get more difficult. I'd rather take care of them as quickly as possible while it's as easy and simple as it can be.
I think that for the vast majority of people, especially people that pull below 3.5, that's the only discussion to have right there. What we just said is right now, if you don't like your parachute, get rid of it and open your reserve right now. Pull both handles. Don't wait for your RSL. Pull both handles.
Yeah.
And then get down to the job of learning your reserve parachute, because you got work to do, man. You got to find a landing area. You got to be able to calm yourself down. You got to unstow those Velcro toggles that, you can't just pull. You got to like peel and punch or something, right? It's a whole new canopy that you don't know much about yet, right? Unless you're a bad packer, in which case maybe you get to see it a lot. But yeah, I also, though, from another side of this, as a test pilot, I jump a lot of stuff that'll open up wacky, but I'm also pulling at 6,000 or 7,000 feet at the minimum when I do it.
Yeah.
But when you see videos of me and other guys spinning out like crazy and then fixing their parachute, you have to recognize that we know that we started high. Directly addressing what Dan just astutely said is, I want to know how high I started the process. And if I know that I pitched at 3, I'm not blinking. You know, I look up, I go, oh, that's ugly. Bye. You know, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
But I've got a deep skill set as a test pilot, as many people do. And high performance pilots in general deal with wacky openings once in a while. And the way we first and foremost deal with it is we pull high. We pull high so that we have the time. I've spun as long as 80 seconds under a cross brace canopy, and I never got close to blacking out. I never got really terribly dizzy. I was just physically tired to sort of see what would happen. But I don't know that everybody's going to be in that same boat. And that's one of the things that's come to the table recently is if you're spinning fast inside of 5 seconds, just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Just so the G's don't make you have a harder time.
These things don't generally get better.
Not usually, although Timmy Thompson came up with a very effective new method of getting out of line twists. That if you look for the video, I think it's called the salmon untwist method. He made one and I made one filming him training it. And I've done it many times where you put your feet and knees together. Did you see this one? Where you lift your feet up and then you do this with both legs as you're holding the risers and pushing the risers together. Holy crap. I have gotten out of some line twists that I got at them sooner. Maybe I would have gotten out of them otherwise, but to have that as in the back of your head where you've physically practiced it in a hanging harness, it could stop you from cutting away and having a problem as a result of a cutaway. But if you go down with the odds, you know, like Dan said, if you just chop it and then deal with it later, you have an extremely high probability of being able to tell the story. Whereas if you fight it, you have an increasing chance of your fighting method not working, and now you've wasted altitude. Now you've got yourself in, you know, where your feet are filled with blood and your head isn't. Where you can't.
If I look up at my canopy and the canopy is flying nice and steady, and I have line twists, well, I can look at them and I know I can get out of those. But if my canopy is spinning one way, my line twists are going the other way, and after a couple seconds, I realize I'm going the wrong direction here, then I'm done.
Right. Well, there are new techniques, like you say, this one and lots of others. But I've seen people try one technique that they saw on YouTube when another technique would have been better. So having an arsenal of options and always knowing about altitude, always knowing, you know, actually checking is smart if you're in a fight mode like that. I think if you decide I pulled high and I'm going to fight it, check your altitude once in a while, and that is easier said than done. But if you're down and dirty below 3.5, why fight it? Why fight it when cutting away is so much fun? Right? That's the flip side of this, isn't it? Right? Woo-hoo! You get to do another skydive again. Briefly. Another hop and pop. So there was another person that asked about fear, Dan, about other coping mechanisms that we can speak to that help sort of, you know, soften it and increase our performance. So, I mean, we have a little bit of time unless there's other questions. Any other things that you use when you find yourself nervous?
Most of what most of them we addressed, you know, already. For me, I'm trying to be sure I know what it is I'm scared of. And if it's some kind of performance anxiety, you know, maybe it just comes with age, but you know, I just don't care anymore. I've screwed up more skydives than most people will ever make, so I'm over it. And realizing that it's not worthy of my fear. You know, that's not worthy of my fear. If it's going on a jump that I know is going to be challenging, it's a 200 or 300 person jump, and I know no matter how well prepared we are, you know, things happen. It's going to be close. I need to be extra sharp. But knowing logically that I've prepared, I'm ready. I've got my plan. I'm good to go. Then I and make sure I interpret the fear as something that helps me prepare more, as opposed to something that will prevent me. If I think of it as fear, then it may prevent me from responding and processing and operating in the situation. But if I understand that this is a good feeling, it's good. This feeling I have actually shows me I'm more ready. Then I use it to my advantage. I kind of like it at this point, as long as you know how to interpret it. But this, we address most of it. It's something both you and I talk a lot about in our books also, obviously.
Well, and everybody's a little different in how they relate to it. Some people really thrive in the hot kitchen. You know, I mean, I did a casual chat discussion with Espen Fadness, right? Big time wingsuit flyer, really talented, and one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met. And he loves it. He loves the pressure, but not everybody does choose to love it. And I think that's the key word here is choosing to lean into it and choosing to stay in your place of power and enjoy. And you came here for the adrenaline. You didn't come here to be bored. So you might as well go, woohoo, this is awesome. You know, yes, I'm on a 300 way. Yes, if I, one of 300 people screw up, yes, 299 people are going to be a little disappointed with me. And I'm going to let that turn, alchemize into my best possible focus, my best possible performance. That's
I think another thing is knowing that it's always, the answer is always, for me anyway, calm down. Calm it down, breathe, trust that you got it. And unless you don't got it, in which case you shouldn't be there. But if you've done the preparation, you've done the training, I can convince myself, I know I've got this. And if I just calm down, it'll work. If I let myself get over anxious, then it works against me.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, calm down means slow down the way that I move, slow down the way that I breathe, bigger and slower. And as you're talking about that, I was also realizing that we're only speaking about our own personal fear, but what about when you're sitting in the plane and you see somebody that looks really nervous, they got that like staring into space kind of thing. And that their skydive is on its current, their current feeling level is going to not be their best possible performance, possibly a total disaster because of their fear. What do you do, Dan? What comes to your mind, in terms of your mechanisms to get somebody out of their shell, out of that dark space of, oh shit, I'm in over my head?
I want to be sure that I am interpreting them correctly before I start doing anything.
Nice. Good statement. That's good.
Because, they may be just where they want to be, and I don't know that person very well. But if I see somebody and I'm really confident, if it's a student I'm jumping with or someone else, and I know them and I can tell that they're going someplace they don't need to go, just kind of almost knocking them out of it a little bit, kind of waking them up from that place that they're going in, telling them to chill, calm down, reminding them that, especially because usually it's not safety that they're worried about. Most of the time it's performance and reminding them that it's not that important. I've had teammates tell me at the world meet in the airplane, when they could see that we were getting anxious, you know what? I don't care. Let's just go have some fun. I don't care how this goes. And it was a lot of relief to hear that because I was carrying a lot at the moment.
Yeah. I remember Jack Jeffries talking about being in the plane, just, thoroughly exhausted from, jump, train, dirt dive, all that. And he fell asleep at, I think it was the world meet, fell asleep in the plane. And he woke up like just about on jump run and couldn't remember the dive flow, couldn't remember the jump. And so, here he's got seconds to get his head back in the game again because he was, he had disconnected from the whole flow of it. And he said what he chose to do was not like, hey, wait, is it Meeker bipole? And then, he didn't do any of that. He just stopped. He closed his eyes, He breathed bigger and slower, calmed himself down, got himself feeling good, and then he just remembered all of it. And they went out. Maybe it was when you guys were together and won it. I thought that was such a great story, to find a way to calm yourself down, and then your higher self shows up and you're able to, drive the bus.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one. I miss Jack. He's a great guy. He's out there somewhere, but I don't know what he's doing, but he's an amazing athlete, an amazing man.
He's doing good. Spoke to him yesterday.
Oh, right on. No, that's good. He'd be a good person to get on one of these, I think. All right. So are there any other questions that people have? Jan,
I've got a couple here.
Because I'd love to, hear from other people's voices here.
Hang on. Jamie, I just allowed you to talk. Are you there, Jamie?
Still muted, but she can. There you go.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, Jamie.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hey, how are we doing?
Good, Jamie.
Good.
Yeah, thank you. I'm in Sweden at the moment, so that's where I'm calling from. My question was, I was once told on my DZ by another skydiver, you'll never make it in the sport unless you can throw an absolute ton of money at it, which is obviously quite disheartening at a lower level. And I just wondered if any of you guys believe that's true, and if you have any tips for newer skydivers on paying for kit and tuition and things like that.
Oh, that's great. What a good question. Dan, go for it.
Oh man, I'm glad it didn't take any money when I started, because I absolutely didn't have any.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten rich doing it either. It takes being at the drop zone. It takes being willing to work and do other things at the drop zone also. I've seen, man, just most of the world champions that I know never had any money, were at the drop zone, became riggers, instructors, jump masters, pilots, doing whatever jobs they could do on the drop zone to make money to get by, found used gear that worked just fine, traded for jumps, or got, started doing coaching jumps and to build up their jump numbers. And it doesn't happen for free, but it's not something that you have to go and get hundreds of thousands of dollars before you start. It's also something which, no matter how much money you have, you can't buy it. You've got to, if you want to excel in this sport, you've got to practice, you've got to train, you've got to visualize, you've got to do the work. You can't buy it. It's just not how it goes. So the answer is, if it's something you're really passionate about, something you're really driven to do, be willing to make the sacrifices. I lived in my van eating peanut butter and jelly for years, and it was great years of my life.
Yep. And I lived on a couch in a school bus at the ranch.
Yeah. And this is it. This is.
I'll get making peanut and butter and jelly then.
Yeah, well, you gotta scale back. Yeah, that's true. And at the same time, you go, well, what else can I do? To fuel my dream. You pack parachutes. I packed a lot of parachutes. You wash the belly of the plane. You plunge the toilet when it gets clogged, and hopefully, you can through being that guy in the drop zone that management knows that you're there, to help with whatever is there. You'll get your jumps one way or another. You will. Even if you don't own gear, here's, just take the rental gear or whatever, because you're showing your full commitment because you love it that much.
Awesome. Thank you for your answers, guys. Really appreciate your input. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, if you will enjoy seeing. Yeah. All right. See you later, Jamie.
Okay. I've got another question here from Brooklyn Brown. Are you there?
Yeah.
I'm here.
Hello, Brooklyn.
Hey, Brian. How's it going?
Good to hear from you. It's awesome. We just did a casual chat, the previous episode. She's a very insightful person. I'm glad you're here.
Glad to be here. I just had a question for you guys regarding being a new jumper. When I was a student, I was just kind of like really overwhelmed with coaching advice. So like, do you guys have any suggestions on how to choose a coach that feels comfortable versus like a new coach who just wants to do a jump with you? Like, how would you navigate that?
Go for it, Dan.
One is I would try not to have too many. Though everybody could have valuable information and everybody could be worthwhile, there's sometimes that you could be hearing what people mean to be similar information, but it sounds so completely different that sometimes it seems like you're getting contradictory information. So I would, be careful. I see people fishing for a coach and they have, 2 days of jumping and they jump with 4 different coaches and don't really have the best experience in the world. Definitely, try to get with someone that you connect with in some way, and someone who loves coaching, someone who loves watching you learn. They love seeing you be successful. They love seeing you have a good time. And I would stick, with that person for a little while. At the same time, not becoming dependent upon them. Get the information, get coached by them, and then, spread it out. It doesn't mean you don't want to train yourself into dependency of having a coach. Get the information, get what you can learn, and then also expand on your own from there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because there's all kinds of coaches with all kinds of motivation. And some of them are doing it, quite frankly, for kind of an ego boost. Some of them are doing it for the money, so that they can jump, which is fine. It's not, that in itself is not evil. It's just, it may not be the best person. Just because they need a jump doesn't mean that they are qualified to coach you.
Right.
Yeah. Dan and Brian, can I throw in my 2 cents on this one?
I want you to, please.
Okay. Brooklyn, this is a male-dominated sport, and there are many times where the new chick on campus, so to speak, gets hit on by all these coaches or these people that want to tell you how, hey, I can make you a really good jumper. I can get you on all the cool kids loads and whatnot. But you have to be aware that sometimes the motivation of some of the people, and I'm not saying Dan or Brian are in this class, but you have to look out for the, I don't know what the proper word is, but you have to watch out for the guys who are going to be predators, so to speak, to say they want more than teaching you how to skydive. So be on the lookout for that. And it has existed since long before I was a jumper, and I started in 1981. It still exists today. So, and the percentage of women in skydiving is only like 15% still. It was maybe 10% when I started, but you have to be on the lookout for, those kind of situations, I guess.
I would add to that often, and it's not just women, people will get escalated in the kind of loads that they get invited on for a variety of reasons. He's my buddy, oh, he'll be all right. He rides a motorcycle or whatever. And then you put them as the base for your 20 way when they've got 50 jumps. It's to fast track somebody undercuts their own learning process, when they should be doing 2 ways and working on superposition.
Exactly.
Whatever. Just because you're cool or, or whatever it is, whether it's, attractiveness in one parameter or another, because people like you, that's another reason that people get pushed ahead too fast, too far. So take your time.
I've really found that, yes, there are potentially other motivations, be it this is what somebody does for a living. But if at the core, if at the very foundation of why they're doing what they're doing is because they honestly love to teach. And this is for instructors as well as coaches, as well as anybody. They love to teach. And if you love to teach, the reason you love it is because you love to watch the people you're teaching learn. And you love to watch the lights go off. You love to watch them grasp what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So if you can find somebody who that's their primary objective, that's their primary goal, then usually you can control any of the other goals they may have.
Yeah, you can feel it when you're listening to somebody, right? I think that everybody's got that capability, that sort of radar or whatever, where you just go, this person is just on autopilot. They're just teaching, the same way that they did to the other person, and they're not actually fielding questions, and they're just broken record kind of teaching, robot teacher. Okay, say thank you very much, and you find yourself a different coach that's organically teaching, that's teaching from their heart, that's asking you questions as they're.
I also realized that was easy for me to say as a guy, but I think that internal motivation is the big thing.
Yeah, for sure. Intrinsically motivated.
Okay, so Brian, do you have any more questions from anybody else? I don't have any.
No, not that I know of. I mean, it's possible on Facebook or something there is.
Okay, what I want to do is hijack the meeting for a minute.
Go for it.
Share my screen.
Oh, all right.
Oh boy.
So,
oh boy. Is it gonna be?
Let me see if it comes through.
Oh my gosh.
Is it coming through?
That takes me back.
Okay, are you guys all seeing a 9-way?
Were you on that? Yes, we are. Were you on that one?
Okay, all right. So Brian is over here at 9 o'clock. Can you see my mouse cursor or not?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so this is Brian over here.
World
and
free
this
ball.
is me in the racer, in the purple in the racer.
I knew you were on that one.
This is Peter in the middle, and this is Tony Ergallo, and this is Carol Clay. And the other people on the load, these were all East Coasters except for me. This is how I met Brian.
Oh, that's funny.
And Carol Clay invited me on this load, and she says, well, we need some people to do some RW stuff. RW is what it was called before it was called FS.
Yeah.
So we need some RW people who can do RW stuff and follow the directions of the free flyer guys. And at the time, Tony Ergallo, this guy over here, he was making these shoot assist jumpsuits, which were, they had these little pillow, I don't know, they captured air kind of things in your arms.
Armpit pilot sheets, we called them.
Yeah, they had the shoot assist. So Tony, Peter, and Brian were these 3 vertical flyers, and Carol organized the other 6 jumpers. And for some reason she asked me, this is at Quincy in 1996. And God knows why I was asked on it, but I was on the load anyway. So
you had my
on this particular load, this photograph was taken by the famous photographer, Mike McGowan.
Yeah, I thought so.
And it's in his selections book. It's an incomplete grip right here between Carol and whoever this person is. But the thing is that we turned like 9 points on this, I think, Brian. Don't you think that's what we did? 9 points.
I remember it was stellar. Yeah.
It was a round zipper kind of sequence, but we turned a bunch of points on this, and it was at the very beginning of hybrid loads. Yeah. And nobody thought it was anything big, but it made the magazine. It was published in the magazine. It's in Mike's book. So, and it's like one of those stellar jumps that I remember. And this is how I met Brian Germain. I am here holding his bare right foot.
I wasn't even.
He's not wearing shoes. Okay.
Wear a helmet. It's embarrassing. Safety third, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm not wearing a helmet either. So.
Oh, you weren't either. And Peter, you can see his bald spot there.
Yeah. So it's going like, no matter what you do in your life, in your skydiving career, you never know when you're going to do something that lasts a long time. Because when I signed up for this, we all thought it was going to funnel. I think we all thought it was going to funnel and nothing was going to come out of it. But it was a really fantastic dive, and I'm trying to get the video off of it. Mike says he doesn't have the video. I asked Brian if he has the video. He's going to check for it. I know I don't have it. Wow. But this was a way cool dive. We turned several points on it. It was stellar. And out of all the skydives I've done in the world, world, this is one of the ones that goes like, oh yeah, this was awesome.
I want to do more of that.
I just wanted to share that with
Well,
you.
why can't we build 100 ways where 20 of the people are on their butts? Why not? Right? It's a form of XRW, right? Yeah, it's just nobody wears the sit wings anymore because I guess it's I don't even know why, honestly, but they help. They really help. Yeah, it makes it easier to fall stable and slow at the same time. Anyway, hilarious. I wish we had some of the cool, like the 300 way stuff that Dan was doing. But
Oh, I can pull up one of those.
Do you have that?
Something, I can pull up something close. Hang on.
Especially for the newer jumpers, they've never been exposed to this stuff, not yet anyway. Maybe they saw something on TV, but
and I just asked Dan about this one.
It's astounding that you can put that many people together that are all, very good skydivers, but to make it work, the mechanics of just getting them to the drop zone on time and getting herding cats, it's what you and Kate have done over the years in particular, in conjunction with others. That is gorgeous. Wow.
Okay. Can you see this? This is called the cat's eye over Eloy.
Wow.
This is one of the Arizona Challenge dives. And I just asked Dan about this earlier today. This is Dan over here at 3 o'clock. Do you see my mouse cursor on him?
He looks stable.
Okay. So these two people right here, this is Bill Lagarde in the red, and this is Becky Thompson in the smaller black. And Bill Lagarde is like 6'6" or something, and Becky Thompson is 5'2". And because of the geometry of this formation, is that Dan told me he slotted those two people together because together they made two people. If you look at all these other people, their size, because one is really tall and one is really short, they added up to two people in this. And the build sequence of this was extremely complicated. Okay. Because you look at all these people, these outfacers here. Can you guys see my mouse?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So these outfacers, I'm going to go right here at like 11 o'clock. And that's Larry at almost 12 o'clock. And there's another one here and another one here, another one here. And this one's me. I'm one of the outfacers. The build sequence was such that all of these outfacers actually did 2 points on this formation. The outfacer actually docked as a three-way. We docked on these two people after they did the two-way thing. We docked on this, and then what we did was we watched across the formation, and when we saw that formation was about to be completed, we turned around and took our slot. It wasn't as though we were standing out there in the room waiting for people.
Yeah.
We were watching the opposite side of the formation and saying, hey, when it looks okay on the opposite side, we're going to turn around and go. And that was the key to making this build work, because all of these outfacers had the same issue. It's like, I don't know when to turn around and go dock on these guys because I can't see them. And this delicacy of the distances was just precise. And I think what Dan told me earlier today, he says putting Becky and
Bill, yeah,
and Bill in the same two-way slot here built the formation so it was symmetrical. This is an extremely hard dive to do. I'm going, Dan, throw in your 2 cents on this dive, because it was one of the most impressive dives I've ever done too.
It was the last, before I moved from Arizona to California, I'm pretty sure that was the last Arizona challenge I organized. And I was just trying, we'd done so many other things, was trying to come up with something completely new with a big, huge open center in the middle. Because obviously it's easier if there is a base that everybody is docking on and building from. But to build this wide open, it was especially important for it also to be symmetrical, which is hard to do when there's no base that's structurally holding the whole thing together. So it really had those. That is why Bill and Becky were together. I couldn't have Bill and some other huge guy throw the whole thing off. But with all these kinds of jumps, it's just a great group of skydivers, a very experienced group. Even so, they're still the best place to put each one so that you have the best chance for success on a formation like this.
That's amazing geometry. Wow.
Cool.
Wow. That really worked. And you got to have the right people to do something.
Yeah, for sure. This is a really experienced group, for sure.
Wow. I love it. I love it. People working together. And I think, if we can do that, what else can we do? Not just in terms of skydiving, but in terms of cooperation to solve all of our problems. I lost my video feed here. I think I can fix it. Sorry, everybody. I didn't know I was missing. Well, I think that ought to be enough. You guys are probably tired. I do this kind of thing a lot, so I'm kind of the Energizer Bunny. I'll just go and go and go. But
thanks everybody for coming. It was really quite a treat. Appreciate
it. Really was. Yeah. You were as awesome as I knew you'd be. And Jan, you were just spot on. You so helpful. Thank you for mechanically making this function properly. I really appreciate both of you being here, and all of you that are. I mean, there's a few that are still left. We've got still 22 people left. That's great. So thank you everybody for joining. I hope that we can do something like this again sometime.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Brian.
All right, you're welcome. Bye-bye.
There are angels by your side. I am riding on the wave through the wreckage of my past, beyond the wasteland and the blame, to find forgiveness at last, in the valley of the void, where the secrets are destroyed, comes the light, love's reality, breathing me into the dream. Oh, great light, love's reality, breathe me into the dream. All I've ever wanted, all I'll ever need, all that I am, into the dream.
fast can you play it? How old are you, mister?
7.
7 years old. Woohoo! High five. You're awesome.